met at 7, which is usual for the district meeting. So at this time, if we can, I'd like to ask everyone, do a roll call, please, starting from my left.
Bruce Olmsted, Hebron.
Judy Benson, Clark, Marlboro. Amy Tonya, Hebron.
Danny Holtzclaw, Andover.
David Gastanian, Hanover.
Bradley Monroe.
Glasgow, Representative.
Carol Shea, Marlboro.
Saminsky, Superintendent of Schools.
Jamie Allen, the business manager.
And Mr. Joseph O'Connor from Hebron is here, and he's dialed in through conference call. So if I can at this time ask everyone to rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Saminsky, Superintendent, to begin the hearing, to make his presentation regarding the budget. I'm also going to ask my fellow board members if we can to just leave the stage, and we'll just fill in the seats here so we'll be able to watch the presentation, which will be on the screen above us. So with that, once we conclude with the presentation, we'll time for questions with the microphone. Thank you.
Good evening. It's my duty to present the 2017-18 proposed school budget to this public hearing. I guess I have a battery problem with the pointer. The proposed budget, if you look at it, we started with the gross budget. If you will recall, we began preparing the budget when the revenue stream from the state was uncertain. The anticipated revenues of $296,855 were revenues that we generate locally from user fees, from plated pay, from user fees, plated pay, rental of the buildings, etc. And then, as we began analyzing the budget, there were additions and deletions. Most of those are outlined on the sheets that you have in front of you. I think the big thing there is we proposed, as we moved down the track of analyzing the budget, we received word that the excess cost and agency placement fee, we would be able to deduct that from the budget. So that amounted to about $604,000. So that was a significant savings. And then we continued to examine the budget and make reductions. And then the budget we're presenting this evening has an overall increase of 2.79%, or an increase of about $782,000 over the previous year. The budget goals, I think that we're very clear. We want to continue improving student achievement. We want to be sure that we offer challenging programs, and most of all, the statutory requirements and the continued implementation of technology. In other words, to continue the one-to-one initiative for grades 10 and 11. 11 and 12. Again, continuing that, we need to address declining enrollment, mostly in the middle school, on our labor agreements, excuse me, and continue the expansion of the middle school academy to grade 8. budget overview. We want to continue the existing programming, the statutory requirements. And you can see there are some decision packages there that are part that we'll be presenting to the board for their consideration, and they are not part of the budget at this particular time. I think that if we look at the previous reductions by the governor, you can see that the reductions in the first column are listed by town. And what we did was we calculated the percent of the town budget that Rham is, and then applied that percentage to that reduction. For example, Andover, Rham represents 49% of the Andover budget, therefore we took 49% of the 18,046. Just to give you one idea of the way we were looking at the earlier calculations, the earlier reductions. The governor's proposed budget, remember, the governor has proposed to reduce ECS funding to make towns pay a portion of teachers' retirement. This is unclear at this particular time. There have been some talk about that being removed, some talk about it being considered. At this particular point in the preparation of the budget, we did not include it. And then we had to recognize special education funding is going to be revised. The staffing reduction, you can see in 15-16, we had about 169 teachers. In 16-17, we reduced 5, and this year, in the budget that we're presenting, represents a reduction of 5 teachers. I think you can see the correlation between the reduction in teaching staff and the reduction in the decline in number of students in the district. Again, taking a look at the budget pie, you can see clearly that about 65% of the budget represents salaries and benefits. Tuition to both vocational and agricultural, special needs schools are included in that tuition account. Utilities, obviously, we need to like the buildings. Debt, that's the bonds to pay for the building. Other represents the discretionary part of the budget. That's where you see paper, pencils, supplies, textbooks, pick for the art classes, etc. And then transportation, and then fuel, point 4. We'll have more to say about fuel later. Again, taking a look at the budget history over the past, since 2010, you can see where the increases were. You can see where the increases this year, and then you can see finally look at the 2.79% increases that we're proposing for the current budget. Again, I think that it's important to take a look. The board has been frugal in looking at ways of reducing costs. The entire, everyone that's employed by the district is enrolled in the HSA. And you can see that the reductions between, the increases between 2015 and 16 and 16, 17. And that's because HSA was introduced in 15, 16. So I think it's proved to be beneficial for everyone. The impact of contracts, you can see the certified staff, what their increase is for this current year. The administrators, their increase, and then the non-certified folks, we will begin negotiations with them very shortly. The heating oil budget, we appropriated approximately $205,000, and you can see the cost of diesel fuel for buses and for various vehicles that we operate. But remember, we'll be converting this facility to natural gas, and that conversion will take place over the summer. Excuse me. Our proposal is the heating cost is estimated by the engineers is about $105,000. Of that $205,000, we pay the town of Hebron approximately $100,000 a year. And with that ratio taking place, the heating conversion should take place should be paid for in about 2.5 years. School choice, you can see where our students fill out to where our students choose to go to. The number of students going to MAGNA, the BOAG students. So you can see that we're responsible for some of these tuitions, but we do have students leaving the district to go to specialized programs. The impact of school choice, because we have to pay tuition for these children, can see where the VOAC tuition is in the cost of the magnet school tuition. So in a line item in the budget is $80,000 that's carried for school choice. Students who return to Region 8, I think that this is important. You can see the number of students who are returning from the parochial and magnet schools. We're proud of that because they're attracted to us by our programs. And then you can see where the other students who transferred into the district came from. The projected middle school enrollment, as I said earlier, the middle school enrollment continues to decline. We look for this year a decrease of about 48 students. So that is factored in and was part of our staff reduction plan. The high school enrollment, we're looking at a decline of about 15 students. And again, it's interesting, the decline in enrollment is at the elementary school. It's impacted the middle school, but it's not yet impacted the high school for the upcoming year. So that's something that we have to take into account as we look at the budget. Special education. I think you can see here the tuition to private schools, tuition out of state, transportation. You can see the increases there. That $1.5 million increase was noted because there wasn't any additional state aid there. Now that has been reduced by about $608,000. Special education enrollment. You can see we're 16, 17, the middle and the high school. You can see the middle school enrollment declining, while the high school special education enrollment is increasing. Again, I think the prevalence rate is important because looking to see how we compare, because there's always a question of whether we over-identify special needs students. You can see where we are, 11.9, and the state is 13.4, and you can see up there how we compare to the communities that surround us. So I think that we're in good shape as far as identification of special needs students. We want to see be sure that those students get the education that they deserve. Local revenue, this is the money we talked about earlier. The pay-to-play, gate receipts, co-curriculum, interest. It's important to note that those are as of February 1st, and for pay-to-play, the lion's share of that comes in the spring, as does the use of buildings. So we expect those revenues to be on track for the upcoming year. But again, remembering where we were at the time the budget was prepared. Federal grants, you can see Title I, that's used for student remediation. Title II to improve instruction. IDEA for special education, in Carl Perkins, a vocational grant. So you can see it's up slightly. We don't know what's going to happen to the federal government, in the fall as they review these grants, so that they could be impacted in the 17-18 budget. The net current expenditure, I think that this is important because I'll show you some per pupil costs. And the per pupil costs are calculated by a state statute. They come from a form called the ED-001. The ED-001 is audited by an independent accounting firm, and then the state compiles the data to develop net current expenditures. As we look at the average special education expenditure, you can see how Region 8 compares to its sending schools. And then, remember, those are elementary schools. And then, excuse me, you can see how we compare to our the surrounding districts around us. And the district that we're most like is Region 19, E.O. Smith. And you can see that our expenditures for special education are about comparable. I think that it's important to note, people talk about the increase in special education expenditures, and you can see by that blue line the trends of special education expenditures. This is from the Connecticut School Finance Project, which is seeking a different way to fund special education. So I just give you that for your information, and to show you that we're about in the same, we're having funding issues just as all the other districts in the state. The regular average per pupil expenditure, again, you can see how we compare to the our sending elementary schools on per pupil expenditures. And you can see we're about $14,000 a student. But then you look at the districts that surround us, and you can see how Bolton, E.O. Smith, and Lebanon, Colchester compare to us. So I think we compare very favorably to in our per pupil expenditures. I think it's interesting to take a look at the accountability report for 2014-15. And I think the one that we're looking at is the graduation rate. We're proud of where that is. And we want to see that continue and improve. The distribution of SAT scores, again, you can see how our students perform. The bulk of them are in the 500 and above range. And again, we continue to be proud of that, and some of our seniors continue to be accepted to some very prestigious schools. The AP tests, and you can see how we compare. The AP tests, AP scores and tests are very important because using those, the scores of those tests, the students can achieve college credit for high school, for courses taken here at the high school. The student must achieve a 3 or better, so that you can see how we continue to improve and show that we can, our students do well. At another time, I was speaking with a parent, and the parent indicated to me that she was very proud because her daughter had achieved sophomore status at a university, and after she had only been there for 1 semester. The reason for that was the AP courses that she had taken. Again, the proposed budget, you can see 2.79%. This is just a repeat of the second slide. I think that, again, this is the levy to the towns using the 2.79% budget. And what we did is apportion the pupils, apportion the cost based on the number of pupils in the district. I think this is important because what it does is it shows the trends over the succeeding years. You can see how Hebron's portion of the budget continues to decline, Andover stays about the same, and Marlboro's continues to increase. So that's just to give you an idea of what's out there in 1819 and 1920. Again, the decision packages, these are things that would possibly be added to the budget by vote of the board. Additional coaches, expansion of the middle school academy, capital budget for facility, capital budget for grounds. As we look at decision package 1, you can see that we're part of it is a middle school cross-country coach, 4 high school football coaches, and a strength and conditioning coach. 4 is the side of the strength and conditioning coach because what that does is it means that that person will be working 4 seasons in the weight room. There are some other positions that were part of the budget, and they were used to fund the full-time athletic director. So you can see that's the request for coaches in the decision package. Expansion of the middle school academy. This would allow more students to go into the academy. And it's something that was a request, but looking at it, I think this is something that would be best saved for another year. This is package 3, and this is the facilities. The fire separations are important because that's what the fire marshal had said. Security cameras floating back with plate. And to look at these, the facilities analyze them and come back with certain recommendations. Some of these things will be in the final package, and you'll see them in other forms. Again, the capital budget on the tennis courts, on the grounds, the tennis courts, sidewalks, money to survey a field. So these, again, are items that the Facilities Committee considered and will be making recommendations to the full board. Again, special education. We will continue to examine special education enrollment in programs of the district. All we're looking to do is to provide the same level of programming here at Rham. I think it's important to do that because when you look at transportation costs, they continue to increase and really don't provide any beneficial programming. So as time goes on and budget discussions continue, we'll be looking at the special education programs to see if it's feasible to bring any of those programs back. Remembering that parents ultimately have to say because they must sign off on the individual education plan. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite anyone who who has questions or would like to comment about the budget. Feel free to use one of the two microphones. Come forward, state your name and the town that you're from, and nice and clear. So Mrs. Munn will sit down here in front of you here. So if you do that, we appreciate it.
I guess I'll go first. My name is Andy Bordy. I'm from Anson. I'm going to address mostly decision package number one. Our school budget is $29 million. There's a little over 19,000 citizens in our district, about 13,500 taxpayers. That's about $2,150 per taxpayer to support this. And that's a lot of money for these schools. I understand that. My concern is the strength and conditioning coach and the salary they have. That's about $20,000. The additional coaches and the whole decision package one is about $32,000. That's about $2.38 per taxpayer. That's a cup of coffee. So what do I get for a cup of coffee? Let me give you a profile of 3 students. Student A comes from Anson, he's a bright kid and athletically gifted, but it's a tough home life. Dad comes and goes. Mom battles substance abuse, money doesn't come easy. But the student finds a home and a family in a youth football field. The coaches encourage him and he builds self-esteem. He's challenged to work hard on himself and support something bigger than himself at the same time. He goes to high school where he doesn't seem to have the same support he once had. He loses interest in being on the football field. He falls into some of his patterns he sees at home, doesn't always attend school, and starts using marijuana. Student B comes from Hebron, is also a bright kid and athletically gifted. He has to deal with a broken family from divorce. He shuttles between houses, but does well on the football field. In season, he's focused and driven. As soon as football ends, he has enough free time that he starts to vape. He doesn't exercise in the off season due to his friends not doing much. He vapes more. Springtime comes around and he wants to play lacrosse. He starts working with that team, but injures his ankle because he pushed himself too hard and too fast. He now can't play with the spring team and he vapes more. Student C from Hebron, not a great student. Academics aren't his thing, but he's great on the field. During the season, he does his best to keep out of trouble, but he likes to excel on the field. His older siblings have left for college. His mom moved out, and his parents are divorcing as well. He's basically home alone. His family troubles spill into discipline problems at school with the team. He feels like there's no stability in his life, that nobody cares about him, and he's on his own. He pushes away the people that are trying to help him invest in him because he believes he's not important or worth it. He quits football, has a lot of free time after school with no supervision, and his vaping turns to weed and his grades get worse. These are the students that I am that go through this. The strength and conditioning coach would be engaged with those people, those kids year round. The assistant coaches would keep engaged with those students during the season, keep them interested, it would keep them invested, and it would get them past the adults that burned them in the past. But they need those people to be consistent and reach out to them. It's worth $2.38 for those students. There are more students than that, and this is the one that I know about. A comment was made that, hey, the strength and conditioning coach is trying to turn us into the New England Patriots. That's not the goal here. It's to keep students invested as student athletes and keep them safe so they can continue to play sports and continue to grow as citizens. A March press release by the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons described the results of a 10-year study on high school sports. They looked at injuries and focused on head injuries and concussions. About 6,600 head injuries in their study, and the sport that had the most preponderance of concussions is girls soccer, specifically girls soccer, not boys soccer. And they believe there's a couple things leading to that. Amongst that is neck strength, and this is the ability for them to use the upper body. Strength and conditioning coach would be the coach that would prevent those injuries from happening. Now, there's a bunch of people here that stayed a little late, and I'm sorry I had to stay late. The decision package one will address the assistant coaches for the football team and the strength and conditioning coach for every student in the high school. And I would like to ask everybody who supports decision package one to please stand up. These folks have students in football and other sports, and we all believe that decision package one needs to be in there and approved. Thank you.
Good day, Daniel Larson, 147 Oak Valley Road. I'm here as an individual. First of all, I want to thank all of you people for your service. With that being said, I have a few questions, comments. First off, it stated this is not the complete budget yet being considered. This 2.79% is up to this point. The other day it was 3.12%. So I'm not sure what changed from last Monday to tonight. So I have to ask a question. A few facts I want you to please consider. One, your budget, any other expenditures, i.e. capital and decision packages, accounts for 42% of the town of Hebron's budget. Two, our local Board of Education's final budget request is approximately 1.4% below last year's budget. They've been a team player. Three, for the last few years, the town's budgets have remained relatively flat. During that same few years, Rham's budget has grown from roughly 1% in 1 year to 3+% for multiple years. This is year after year. The town, in attempting to control spending and costs due to the financial constraints passed down by the state, has reduced the town staff, reduced the fire marshal's hours, cut one resident trooper position, plus a host of other cuts to try to keep our town affordable for our taxpayers. My question, when is Rham going to help the communities weather this fiscal storm that we are all facing? It's something that has to be borne by everybody. We need you to be part of the team to help to keep these towns afloat.
Mr. Larson, you did have one question that I would like to have Dr. Szymanski answer. And it was what changed since last Monday from 3.12% to 2.79? Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that
that's
your
correct.
question? Okay. Dr. Szymanski?
Is we continue to examine the budget and try to make reductions whenever possible. For example, we adjusted the salaries in the budget based on people that have left, people that will be coming back, and represented about $79,000 in savings. And then we looked at administrative software, and we looked at the student data warehouse, and we felt, and we were in talks with someone who can provide the same service at a lower rate. So those are the two things that we looked at since last Friday. And I think that we've always continued the practice of examining the budget and making reductions whenever possible, because we feel it's our duty to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Becker, I would like to speak in favor of decision package 1 for additional coaches. Is your microphone on?
Am I on now? All right, good. I usually don't need to vote. As a coach at Manchester, I can tell you the difference that it makes in the kids' lives. And as Mr. Warden pointed out, this is a small number. And I do agree, we are facing a fiscal storm. I know that the budget is tight. I get too. I want to walk around it. better? I understand that budgets are tight. We are not asking for a lot. This is, I think you said, a cup of coffee per person. We look at this, there are very reasonable requests. We are trying to just get to average. We're not asking for anything special. And if someone said making us the New England Patriots, this isn't even close. We're not asking for anything special. We're not asking for anything extra. We're trying to do what average high schools in Connecticut do. And we're not, and with this, we won't even get to that. I have seen it firsthand with myself, with my coaches, my assistants, and our strength coach. The impact that you have on children's lives. And this is, I push this from the start. The greatest impact is that face-to-face. There's a lot of support needed, but if you can put assistant coaches, you can put a strength coach there to reach out to these kids, to give them a chance, not only to excel, but to have a home, to have a place. We'll make vast improvement in these kids' lives, and it's very affordable.
My name is Siobhan Peng, and I live at 23 Lake Ridge Drive in Marlboro. I'm an attorney and have had 4 years of experience as a surrogate parent working for the state to advocate for children on my caseload who are in care of the state and need or might need special education services. But more important, I have a 16-year-old sophomore at Rham who happens to have an IEP. While I applaud the efforts of this board to look at ways to keep special education costs in check, I have some concerns regarding creating an in-house transition-only program in our district. I've been in touch with Pat Anderson, an education consultant with the state who specializes in transition services. She reminded me that first and foremost, the PPT has to identify what the goals and objectives will be for that student. Then the PPT can talk about the best placement to help the student meet those goals. The district cannot just tell all transition-only students that they must participate in the district's transition-only programs. On the Connecticut State Department of Education website is posted the Transition Bill of Rights, which I've brought tonight. I want to point out the following specific sections. Number 7 refers to the student's rights to core transition skills, such as transportation, to name just one. However, for those students who need to learn how to use a city bus, our region does not have anything other than a commuter bus to Hartford in the morning that returns in the evening. Number 10D states that transition-only services must provide students with the opportunity to spend at least 80% of their time with non-disabled peers. High school students are not considered peers of students in the transition program. Neither are teachers nor are job coaches. Number 10I suggests that transition-only services be based in the local community rather than in the high school itself when possible to prepare students for life after high school. While it is not saying that a transition-only program cannot be located in a district's high school building, it is considered best practice to be located elsewhere. For example, E.O. Smith located the STAR transition program on the Yukon campus, so it is off the high school grounds and it has plenty of non-disabled peers to work with, in addition to those peers located at work sites. As far as being attractive to Rham students and to students from other districts, Rham is already at a disadvantage if it attempts to place the transition-only program in-house at the high school. I would suggest that if this board wants to create a Rham transition program, it look to outside locations to rent from and work with, such as perhaps Goodwin College. Regarding the alternative high school programming, so specifically high school, not transition, not post-grad, I think that Rham is on the right track. While creating a clinical day treatment program will not bring all of the outreach students back to Rham, it would be a very attractive option for middle school and high school students who need this kind of program. want to have the opportunity to transition back into public school in the future. So many clinical day treatment programs are not on the campus of a public high school. So students who might be ready for a transition back due to transportation issues often have a harder time moving between programs and being successful in more rigorous public school setting. So thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Szymanski, did you have any response to that, to the any proposed changes to the transitional services?
After a survey of the parents, because remember, as I said earlier this evening, that parents have the ultimate say in what they must approve the program. And after discussing this with the parents, and the special education department did so, we've said that no, that's a place that we would not be looking. We're continuing to look at other programming, one of the programs that was mentioned this evening, and the other programs, because we want to be sure that we provide appropriate programming in a setting that that's beneficial to the students, and one where students are not spending an awful lot of time on a van. Because that's, I think that funds could be spent better on programming than on bus transportation.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Mary Rose Mead. I live at 109 Church Street in Amston. A citizen. I have full disclosure. I also work at Rham High School as the English department coordinator, but I'm speaking as a citizen. I just wanted to address Dan Larson's comments, and Dan's always been, thoughtfully keeping an eye on the budget, but I think we need to keep perspective. We can say that the elementary school budget has come in lower. However, the Hebron Elementary School per pupil expenditure is $736 per child, more than Rham High School and Rham Middle. So Region 8 has a lower per pupil expenditure. With young adults, we have science labs, we have academic programs, we have athletic programs. It's a different population, and we do it for less, and we do it well. And we need to keep perspective. It's very easy to look at a percentage number, but we need to look at all the numbers. We're very fortunate to have been recognized from both a state and a national perspective as a very excellent school. I very much support all of the programming that we have here in athletics, but not at the expense of the academic programs, because that's our primary purpose. I agree with the people that have spoken about the positive impact that athletics have on students. It helps with their self-esteem, it improves their academics, but we just have to make sure that we're not trading athletics and academics. Last year, we lost 5 faculty in retirements and layoffs. One was from the English department. This year, this budget has 5 more reductions in faculty, another one from the English department. The English class is the one class where every student has to take it every year, and that also comes with reading support, writing support. I just want to make sure that the board and the citizens realize that we need to make sure we protect the academic integrity of what we have in Region 8, and that we do in the second to lowest per pupil expenditure for all regional school districts, and I believe we're in the bottom 20. We also have to bus kids from multiple towns. That all comes into factor. And so we have to make sure when we're looking at this percentage that we're going up, we're not asking for grand amounts of money. We're not asking for anything that other schools don't have in spades. We're trying to maintain in the current culture and climate, and I realize I live in Hebron, I pay the taxes, but I also believe that we have to think about our priority as a culture and a community and the impact it has on all of us, not just people that have students in schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Either Bryce or Marlboro. So going through the whole college application process, starting to learn with my family now, and quickly learning that they're not all about GPA and test scores anymore. They want to know what your extracurricular activities are, what experiences you've had in your life that have shaped you as an individual. So it was interesting reading the River East News Forum's letters this week, and there was one that caught my eye in particular because I think it encapsulated it pretty well. It was called Losing Sleep. And I thought the message, like I said, was really relevant. And a couple of things the author said in there was children learn in different ways. Our curriculum should be focused on more than just core subjects, but should create diversity in thinking, be more well-rounded and prepared for life. It was also the opinion of the author that special education, AP courses, extracurricular activities, clubs, athletics are also extremely important to the development of our children. And so I wanted to give credit where credit's due, and our board member Susan Rapley actually wrote that. And I thought it was great because as I start to look at the $29 million budget that we're talking about this season, as Dr. Sminsky said, 69% of that salary and benefits. So, that goes through a whole other process with the collective bargaining agreement and everything else. And so, when you're really looking at the $8 or so million residual piece, I look at my day job, I look at numbers all day long, and I analyze and I data crunch. So when I looked at this budget, which is a couple hundred, the long version, not the one that's included here, it's a couple hundred line items long, I was surprised to see there's only 5 line items that are over $200,000 as an individual line item and has a proposed 10% increase or more. So when I looked at those, 2 of those are salary and benefits, so kind of put those aside because we already talked about those are, dealt with separately. One was just electric. The cost of electric is proposed to go up by 16%. I know that's being dealt with, on a side note. The other 2 were transportation, and then for special ed is proposed to go up 50%, 53%, sorry, and private tuition to go up net after allowances, so after that's factored in, still 70%. Now, I'm not suggesting that we cut special ed. I know it's clear and dear to heart to a lot of people at least know someone or have a family member. I have 2 brothers that are special needs themselves. So I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting when we're looking at proposed increases, if we keep the services, at the level that they're at, right, and the number of programs, it's more looking at the years ahead. So I know there's been some discussion about we have to do things differently, but sustaining 50% and 70% increases per year over year, where are we going to be in 5 years? So again, I'm not suggesting cutting what we additionally have. I think it's just managing and looking at those line items, because if those are 2 of the 5 biggest line items in the entire budget, they need, I think, a little more focus. And then I hear people talking about a $27,000 or $40,000 increase that's going to significantly improve the lives of the children, 660 athletes, student athletes in those in that program. I think we have to go back to the message that says we're looking for more well-rounded students, and we just need to make sure that the entire budget's looked at. Thank you very much.
Kevin Delaney, Hebron. First, I want to thank the board for your time and effort. I happen to be a finance director in a nearby community, and I know the time and effort that you put in, so thank you, Dr. Smith, and your staff as well. One comment and one question. First, I would like to echo what Dr. Sminsky said about package 2, that I do think it is best safe for them. And then my question relates to something that we talked about earlier. Rham has very good athletic programs, both boys and girls. I had the advantage of playing sports when I was younger, and the only concern I have for the conditioning director, or the conditioning person, how do we avoid that just becoming a 5th football coach in the fall? How do we avoid that becoming focused on just one sport? And it's fair to boys and girls, all the different sports. Thank you.
if I got your question correctly, was how do we avoid, or it was concerned with the fitness coach becoming a fifth football coach, am I correct?
How does it have balance between all the sports we offer and both genders? Really ensure the balance.
To be honest with you, I know we haven't discussed that question. It's the first time it's been presented to the board. And obviously be a responsibility of the athletic director to make sure that those allocations are done properly. But sad, I don't want to say sad, but I have to tell you, we don't have that answer because we haven't discussed that question.
Hi, my name is Meg Clifton. I'm a resident of Hebron. I have 2 children who are in the Hebron Public Schools. Full disclosure, I'm also an English teacher at the high school. I just wanted to kind of build off of what Mary Rosenmead had said and say that it is extremely important going forward that we make sure that we are making academics, since we're a board of education, that we make academics our priority and we make sure that we are ensuring that all students are receiving the academic opportunities that they deserve. I think it's also important to point out that special education is not something we can cut legally. There are a lot of strictures in place at the state level and the federal level, and based on things that I've read in the River East and comments that I've heard from people, it's not something that you can just easily be like, oh, well, we'll just cut from special ed. So I think that's an important distinction that everyone needs to make sure that they understand. So keeping academics need to be a priority. We need to make sure that we're not cutting teachers at the expense of students. Thank you.
Dick Shea, resident of Marlboro, member of the Marlboro Board of Selectmen, very alarmed member of the Marlboro Board of Selectmen, I might add. We, of course, have been working our budget. We've been watching carefully what's going on at the state level. We have calculated that even with the currently proposed Rham increase, because of the changes in population that puts more of the Rham budget into Marlboro's column, and the changes that are proposed by the governor, were all that to take place as proposed currently, Marlboro will be facing an 11 to 13% tax increase. I have no doubt but that the residents would vote that down. Because Rham's budget comes up at a referendum before the Marlboro budget, I am also concerned that the opportunity for reductions in the Rham budget, should the governor prevail, will not be available to us, and we'll have to take the entire amount out of our local budget and our local elementary school budget. Now, the good news is legislators I talk to tell me there's no chance that the governor's plan is going to pass. Bad news is that when I ask them what they propose to replace it, I just get blank stares. So we know somewhere along the line somebody's going to be reaching into our pocket for a lot more money. With the budget that you have now, I know it's been steadily worked, and each week the percentage declines a little bit more. I wish we had a few more weeks, but we don't. There are a few things that I saw on there that I wonder if you could at least take a look at. There was a proposal in one of the facilities packages to spend $18,000 on a engineering work for a baseball field that will be required at some point in the future. That is going to be driven by a Hebron decision to convert, the way I understand it anyhow, to convert one of their fields in Veterans Park for a different class of use. However, I think that's 2 or maybe more years off in the future. And when the subcommittee discussed that, they decided rather than spend the money on full engineering, they would go down to a $2,000 or $3,000 appropriation just to have the area surveyed. Now I understand it's still to be surveyed, except now it's $15,000 instead of 2 or 3. So I wonder if you could look at that and perhaps postpone it. I also noticed as I looked through Bob Saminsky's list of reductions, there are several reductions, but actions specific to the board seem to be isolated to increases only. Each increase is not very large, but in total, they indicate a trend that is a little bit alarming. And while the individual items probably have merit, I hope that the board later on this evening will sharpen their pencil and perhaps find some more items to reduce. I think overall, the Rham budget is reasonable, and if these were normal times, this auditorium would probably be close to empty, but these are not normal times. And lastly, I know this has taken a tremendous amount of work on everybody's part, and I hope that you're able to wrap it up this evening, because I'm a lousy bachelor and I'd like to get my wife back. Thank you.
As a student at Rham, I would like to share my thoughts on why it is essential that we have a strengthening and conditioning coach. Yes, it is fantastic that a strength and conditioning coach will improve our athlete performance on the field and court. However, I also feel that the most important role will be the reduction of sports-related injuries. Personally, I have had 2 ACL tears in my 3 years of high school. One I tore while playing basketball, and the other while playing football. I have had surgery both times, and it is a 6 to 9 month rehabilitation process. The recovery and recuperation is long and hard. This year alone, 3 of my football teammates had torn shoulders, all of which required surgery at the end of the season. Also, one of my classmates who played basketball tore her ACL while playing and had ACL surgery 1 week after me this year. Last year, one of my football teammates also tore his ACL, while I know several other athletes in all sports who have had torn ACLs, MCLs, shoulder, knee, and ankle injuries. I share this because I feel it is important that you understand that a strength and conditioning coach's main goal will be to build up our muscles and prepare us physically so as to prevent injuries. If having a strength and conditioning coach prevents just 1 injury, it is worth it. However, statistics have also shown that having a good strength and conditioning coach can decrease injuries in sports, sometimes as much as 87% in extreme cases. Even if that number was 25%, wouldn't it be worth it? So I do not view this as a nice to have. I feel it is a necessity for the health and welfare of our student athletes in all sports. I also just want to emphasize that the strength and conditioning coach would be like walking in the weight room, so it will be available to anyone, and anyone can come and use. It's not like going to be specifically targeting one sport. It's open to any athlete that wants to use it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel Warren, resident of Andover, chairman of the Board of Finance there. Also a Rham graduate, 2001, second generation Rham graduate. My grandmother was on the Board of Education that built the original Rham High School. Just so for context here, I'm hoping that my children graduate from Rham. What I want to first speak to is the number of the reduction that's attributed to the ECS special education. $608,000 that has brought this budget down to about 3% increase. From municipal board of finance perspective, this is a bit of a shell game, robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're going into this budget cycle assuming that we're going to get special education grant money that is proposed in Governor Malloy's budget, where Rham is apparently now presuming the special education excess cost revenue is going to continue per usual, so there's a bit of a disconnect there. So we can't take the number that comes out of Rham and just plug that into our municipal budget and say, okay, here's the percent or total tax increase to the folks in our town. So I think that should be a little bit of something that needs to be considered when actually the taxpayers who are going to be voting on these budgets need to understand that just because the Rham budget is coming down doesn't mean that that's going to be offset by a loss of revenue if the governor's special ed revenue program doesn't go through. So that's my first point. My second point is, I didn't want to get overly sentimental here, but there's been a lot of appeals to people's emotions. I was an all-state athlete in baseball in 2001 when we were playing on a field of dreadful conditions. I coached JV the following year while this school was being built. I also played rec football in Rham up until about 10th grade. I would have done anything, first of all, just to play any football. I played sandlot football out in the Rham field. I would have done anything to have the athletic facilities that this institution has now. I also understand the extreme value of education, and that is going to be the most important thing in all the students' lives that come out of this school. And I do not think that it is responsible or acceptable for the Board of Education to cut any money to the academic programs and increase spending in any athletic program. This school is an excellent institution. It should be respected for it. It should be acknowledged for it. But these are extreme times. And the metaphor of a cup of coffee is used. Increasing the athletic spending and cutting the academic spending to what's being proposed is like buying a cup of coffee and then not getting lunch. So that really needs to be considered here. And this is important. I understand the value of athletics, but people's property taxes going up 10%, if they're coming from a broken home, that is going to affect their lives far greater than some of these packages that are being discussed. So I respect the board. I thank you for your time. As a volunteer official, I understand how much time you guys spend on this stuff. So it's appreciated, but please keep it in perspective. Thank you.
John Swanson from Marlboro. I would agree there's been some emotional appeals. I stand in front of you having every interest to side on both, obviously the academic side, including having a son who's in special education. That same son happens to be a pretty darn good football player. I have twin sons. They're 14. They're in 8th grade. We're struggling a little bit at home right now. I'll call it the teenage shenanigans that are going on. And the son that is in special ed hasn't been involved in the sport since youth football ended in the fall. And he's lost his way a little bit. And as much as the special ed program in the middle school and having just went, to his transfer meeting and just being wowed by the level of commitment and dedication, and also, being quite wowed by the high school orientation and all the programs that were presented. I can't stress enough. I witness it firsthand in my house, what athletics does for my son, what being part of a football team does. Now, in and of itself, that's one thing. But what you're looking at in the budget, as has already been mentioned, is coaches and a strength and conditioning coach. We're not looking for new uniforms. We're not looking for a new stadium. The reference to the New England Patriots is totally inapplicable. We're looking at human bodies that can affect my son's life when he's out there on the football field, when he's in the gym working out with the good and the bad influences that might be there. That's it. It's people to work with my son, and people to work with kids like him that we're looking at. The only other comment I want to make is the board looks at the constituency that's here tonight and trying to show some strength in numbers is just to remind the board of the petition that was submitted. And as my wife just got up and left and said, I gotta go. The boys gotta be picked up, they gotta get home. And when I get done talking,